Tonka here, that's me, and I clearly need help with my manuals, as you can see. So I decided to make this here manual machine, and you can too, because I decided to make a DIY video on how to do it, and how to do it on the cheap. You can do it for about under 40 bucks for sure. As long as you have the tools, you'll be good to go. It's not my design, it's a design by a guy named Steve. I always forget his last name, Steve something, I'll put it there in the text. I saw his design on a mountain bike blog online, and it looked real interesting, and it looked like I could make it pretty cheap, so I did. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it inspires you to make a manual machine. Trademark Steve, whatever his last name is, and I hope it makes your manuals better. I hope it makes mine better too. I'm totally doing this on the fly. I just kind of looked at his design and figured out a materials list and went shopping for it. So as best I can see, I think you can build this thing with one 8-foot 2x4, one 8-foot 2x6, one 8-foot 1x6, one 3/4 inch thick piece of 2x2 plywood, one eyelet, a box of 2-inch drywall screws, and a box of 3-inch drywall screws, which I already had. But here you can see the total for all that, $32.27, not including the box of 3-inch screws, which may not actually be all that necessary. But there it is, there's all the materials. You will need a strap or a piece of rope too, but I know I'm going to have something in the mess of this garage somewhere. I'll find something to use. Maybe you will too. Maybe I have to buy a strap. I'm probably going to have to keep the instructional portion of this where I talk into the camera a little bit short because it's hot as a mofo out here and I'm going to have to turn this fan on and it's pretty loud. Reasonable size fan. Crazy amount of volume. It gets pretty loud as it gets going. But it's much better for me. So I'm gonna get going. See you in a bit. Out the fan's not so terrible. So the first measurement I did was I measured the wheelbase of the bike from front axle to the rear axle. The second measurement I took down was, well, I know I got 29-inch wheels and tires, but I wanted to see the actual measurement from the edge of the tire to the edge of the tire, which is actually 29.5 inches. I'm going to use that measurement for later. And then the third measurement I took was I put a square here on this part of the tire and this part of the tire to see about how far out I'd have to bring the board to attach the eyelet, which is going to hold the safety strap to the front tire. So I went from the end of the board, made my wheelbase mark, and then the second mark is the amount that I'm going to need to stick out in front of the front tire, and then this third mark is basically what's going to stick out from behind the bike and support your weight or be a lever to not have you pull the whole contraption over backwards onto yourself, because that would suck. Kind of bad. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a single cut back here on the furthest one, because that whole board is going to make the base of the machine. Now you can use any kind of saw you have. You could use a chainsaw. You could use a circular saw, which is in there. You could use a Sawzall if you have that. You could use a radial arm saw, which is actually holding the camera for the time lapse. Or you could use a table saw, whichever you prefer, or whichever you have handy. Either or. I think I'm just going to break out the circular saw because that's probably the easiest thing to use. the size of the, I don't know what you call it. I guess we're gonna call it the rear tire cage. And yes, I'm doing it on the front, but in theory, the front tire is the same size as the rear tire. So I'm gonna do it on the front. And I want to get basically two measurements out of this. One, I need to know what it is from right here to right here. So I'm going to use a square, a metal square, to put it on the ground to see right where that goes and make a mark on this 2x4. Then I'm going to make a mark where this one is, and that should give me the length that we need for the rear tire cage. And I would suggest, if you're making one of these for yourself, I would suggest making it for a 29-inch wheel. That way, if you ever get a 29er in the future, or if your buddies have a 29er and they want to practice on their bikes, you can fit it. And once you make it with a 29er, you'll just have a gap, say like right here, if you have a 26-inch wheel, or 27.5 might be like that. So you just throw another piece of wood in there to block it out and secure everything. Look at that, Florida rain. We're going to put a little diagonal brace going from here down to here to help support the rear part of the wheel from twisting. Attaching the 2x6s and 2x4s together so that they will remain a single unit as it appears in here. Now I'm going to pre-drill the holes for the screws on the outside board. It's not absolutely necessary, but I would rather go ahead and do that than have this split. So it's just an extra step that kind of helps save you from mistakes. start these things, huh? I'll work on it, alright? Here comes the 1x6. This is where we're going to work that in. I want to mount this to the 1x6. And what I want to do is mount it so that there's a gap like that hanging out from behind. And so what'll happen is, bear with me for a moment, this will be mounted in this fashion to the 2x6, which is going to support everything. So what we can do now is we're going to cut that 1x6 right there, and you're going to have this long length of it. And on each end, we're going to split that 2x6 right there, and we're going to put it on each end of this 1x6 and make this 1x6 pretty much an outrigger. And when you're learning to do manuals and you don't have your side-to-side balance, what you can do is slide that outrigger. You'll take that board and slide it into here, and so it'll make a T going across your vertical line of the bike. Sorry, I got the yard people here now. And that'll give you lateral support. And you can put 2x6s, like I said, on the end of it, you know, to equal the height. And then when you maybe progress, I don't know how this is going to work, but maybe after progressing a little bit, we take the 2x6s off of the 1x6 outrigger, and then it'll give you a little more side-to-side motion. And then when you get to be expert level, then you can have no rigger at all. But I guess once you're expert level, you're not going to need this machine anymore. So maybe that's all for naught. Anyway, I'm going to do it. You're going to want to mark where you're going to put these screws, because when you mount this whole thing to the 2x6, you don't want to be accidentally getting a screw going into a screw that you've already got in the bottom of this thing. Now you can just screw it in. We're almost done. So now all we have to do is get the rear wheel retention box. We'll work on the name, tire cage, retention box, I don't know. We just have to mount that to the 2x6, and in order to do that, we have to figure out where the front wheel is going to rest so that it gives us enough space to put an eyelet on the end. been neat. Well, except for the front strap, which I don't necessarily think you really need. I think looping out of a manual is probably an important skill to have. So I don't know that the front strap's really all that important. And I noticed that out of instinct, when I started to go too far back, I hit the back brake and it stopped me from going back. So I don't know. I think it works pretty good. Feels a little squishy. Feels like you're gonna, taco the rear wheel a little bit. If you don't, stay right on balance. But I guess that's a good thing. It helps you with your lateral balance. See right there? I just hit the back brake and it popped right back down. Clearly I need a lot of practice, so I won't bore you with that, but I'll keep practicing.